When Andrew Bowman called me last May to tell me that I was going to be this year's recipient of the Kingsbury Browne Award, I was flabbergasted. And that word actually does mean greatly surprised or astonished, and it's the word I do intend to use because I was and am. And I'm really, really honored. And then I remembered that rally was in September this year, and that we had already made plans to be in Africa for most of the month of September. So plans, award or not, our plans couldn't be changed. I wish I could be there in Portland with all of you to tell you in person how honored I am, but this video is going to have to do. I want to sincerely thank the Land Trust Alliance and the Lincoln Institute for making this award possible. Back in the early 1980s, when I was just starting my career at the regional office in Boston of the Nature Conservancy, I'm pretty sure I sat in on meetings with Kingsbury Browne, although I will actually admit that my memory may be wishing for that more than that it actually happened. And of course, I had no idea what was to come. And what did come was a 40-year career in conservation. And it happened to coincide with the growth of the land trust movement in the US. There are now 3 times more land trusts in the US than there were in 1981. And in 1981 or thereabouts, land trusts had only protected about 2 million acres of land. Based on the most recent Land Trust Alliance census in 2020, that number is 61 million acres of land. That is unbelievable, an unbelievable rate of growth. And since I was lucky enough to be a bit player in all of this, I want to spend a few minutes just talking about what I've experienced and observed over my 40-year career, what the big changes have been, and what the challenges are still ahead. So I started working for the Nature Conservancy in 1982. I was a young lawyer, just a year out of law school, and it was amazing. I found a job with the Nature Conservancy. I actually found it because I read a newspaper ad, just by chance. I was on vacation in the wilds of Maine. There was no email or anything like that. So I had to handwrite a note to Mike Dennis, who was then the general counsel of the Nature Conservancy, telling him that I was really interested in the job, and that when I got back, I would send him my resume and the whole cover letter thing. And I did do that, and I did get the job. I got it when I started working at the Nature Conservancy when there was maybe 400 people in the Nature Conservancy, and there are now, I think, well over 3,000 people in the Nature Conservancy. It's an amazing bit of growth. In my early years at TNC, there was an imperative to protect land. It was really an emphasis on doing deals, and it was a sense that you could worry about the rest of it later. And it was tremendously exciting. I loved it. I am very, very grateful for the opportunities that I had with the Nature Conservancy. I really feel like I got an advanced degree in land conservation by being in that organization at that time. But I came to believe that TNC's laser-like focus, what at the time, that we all said this, we protect land the old-fashioned way, we buy it. And it was very appealing, but I began to feel it was not broad enough. Mary Kay O'Donnell of the Alliance wrote precisely about this just within the last few months. She said, over the years, the meaning of protecting has shifted toward the future. Managing land, restoring habitats, monitoring conservation easements, controlling invasive species, adapting to climate change, forming partnerships, and building trails are all part of protecting land for the generations to come. So is helping to educate children and adults and creating inviting spaces for people to feel welcome in and appreciate nature. I couldn't agree more. And it's certainly what motivated me to go to Mass Audubon in 1999. I began to see that public policy and advocacy work, education and community outreach were going to be essential to long-term success. Mass Audubon's 3 strategic focus were really the 3 parts of a stool. Conservation, meaning land protection, land stewardship, good science, education from preschool to school programs to summer camps, and advocacy, whether at the State House or in local communities. So this brings me to the evolution I have observed in these last 40 years, that collectively we have realized that truly protecting land making good on the promise of perpetuity, is in fact a much bigger and more complicated undertaking than we thought back in the 1980s. So I really want to just focus on two parts of this issue that represent significant change in the last 40 years, and they will not surprise you. The first is climate. That issue was not even on the table in the 1980s, and even when I went on the Alliance board in 2010, it was not an issue that most land trusts or the Alliance wanted to engage on. That has changed dramatically, as it should have. At Mass Audubon, we began to slowly work on climate change through policy and advocacy work and our educational programs. And by 2015, our strategic plan had as one of its three major goals, working on climate change. And I will tell you, it was not easy. And there were a lot of people in the Mass Audubon community who disagreed that climate should be a focus. But I think that has changed, as I think it has changed for many members of the land trust community. And the second issue is around inclusion and equity. We need to broaden our scope and broaden our reach and realize that to do so requires new ways of thinking. We need new seats at the traditional conservation table, new place settings, and sometimes we need to be able to leave the table and go to a new table altogether. The Land Trust Alliance has provided tremendous leadership on these issues over these last years while continuing to carry out the fundamentals from the Alliance's leadership on conservation easement integrity to continuing leadership development for land trusts. We all know that change is hard, and in a country currently so divided, we need to fight even harder to find our common ground. But as Andrew says, land is the answer. And I, for one, believe that. I really believe in the ability of land trusts to shape the future of our communities, to be trusted partners, including with those who have not previously been at the table, and to help find solutions to the existential threat of climate change. What a tremendous, exciting time to be involved with this work. I want to end by thanking all my colleagues and friends from around the world. I've been so incredibly lucky to work with committed, dedicated conservationists all over the US and in Romania, Germany, Australia, Chile, through my work with the International Land Conservation Network. I've had such a wonderful time working with all of you, learning from all of you. It's been amazing and a privilege. I stand in awe of the committed, smart, creative, inspiring people I've had a chance to work with. And I want to especially thank my husband, Tui Rogers, who's stood by me all these 40 years and cheered me on. And most of all, I want to dedicate this award to my son, Luke, who died unexpectedly 3.5 years ago, and who was and always will be my proudest moment. So in these troubled times, I'm sure that many of you have gotten comfort and strength from this poem, as I have, The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the slightest sound, in fear of what my lives and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Thank you, and have a great rally.